how did the project come about?
Just meeting her was, yeah, well, out of college, I started working for a climber photographer named Jimmy Chin. And then, he was one of the few Asian American photographers at the time, and he was transitioning into video and started a production company called Camp 4 Collective. And his business partner at the time, Tim Kemple, had recommended I look into Ashima. Said if you're interested in telling more Asian American stories, you should check her out. They had shot a commercial for the North Face with her when she was, I don't know, maybe 10. So when I first met Ashima, she was around, I think, 11. So I flew out to New York, met with her and her family, and spent her Thanksgiving break with them. And after that week, I was like, oh, actually, instead of a short film, maybe I could do something more long term. And then when they agreed, I quit my job, and then I moved in with them for a few years.
Minji, anything to add?
His origin. Kenji's origin story, I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. He's a very, not even visionary, ambitious. There's all these words, but he went for it, and he hit them up out of the white pages. That used to be a paper book that people used to use to find information. That was back then, yeah.
And Minji, you noted before the film started that you're very protective of Ashima, and you got to you both got to see her really grow up. And what was that like?
I actually came into the project quite late in the process. So Kenji filmed with her. He managed her, and before he even filmed anything, he really built this amazing relationship with the family to build that trust. Because you can't, relatable. I don't think you get access to an Asian family like that and see all of their. My dad doesn't even like me doing Q&As. He's like, "Don't talk about us." It's private, It's your most intimate life, and so he built that relationship and that trust. I came on board 6 years ago, so this was filmed quite a while ago, and he had already had all the footage. So when I came on board, it was at a specific kind of transition period, and I saw 3 minutes of footage, and I was like, "What is this? I have to be part of it, and we have to finish this."
Yeah, so I guess, Kenji, what was it like growing up with the Shiraishi family?
It was great. It was great at first, and it was great throughout too. But Popo and Miko treated me as their son basically. So yeah, I'd get yelled at as much as Ashima. No, Ashima would get yelled at more, but yeah, they were very comfortable around me, and that was by design. I spent a year with the family before I even picked up a camera, really. Because I wanted them to be used to having me around. So in those family conversations, and when Ashima would get scolded or whatnot, I wanted them to, it would be easy for them to forget that I was there. And then I slowly integrated cameras into their lives, and then it was at least 3 years of just full filming. And then you got to see a year of that play out on screen.
I think what the film really does really well is outside of rock climbing, it really shows the father-daughter relationship, the sacrifice that the parents make, the commitment that the dad has towards Ashima, and making sure that they can provide what she needs to climb a V14 or be the best rock climber. Was that always the thread that you were planning to go through, or was it sort of just morphed into that after seeing the family dynamic?
Yeah, it was always about Ashima's relationship with her parents. When I came into their life, Ashima was already pretty much a household name in the climbing community. There had been some short films made about her, some about her and her coach at the time, Obi, and her father. But the mother's story was pretty much invisible, mostly because she was always working and providing for the family. So people couldn't just ask her to take time off work to be interviewed. And also a lot of the people making the content, they don't speak Japanese. So they would interview Popo in some broken English, and then mostly it was Ashima telling the story, or her coach. What was the question again?
Was it always the thread to cover the family dynamic?
So for me, it was about the family, just because I could communicate with her parents. Ashima's mother is born, I was born in the same town as Ashima's mom. So it was important for me to convey what their family dynamic was, because originally this film, I wanted to make the movie because I moved back from Japan to the U.S. in 2009, and you know, like historically, now it's a lot better, but historically Japan has had a fairly high suicide rate, and the kids in Japan had a lot of societal pressures of in school, in their careers and whatnot, and I wanted kids to be able to see someone their own age going through something difficult and persevering and coming out okay. And Ashima, you know, her life on social media seems pretty easy. From the time she started climbing at 6 years old, within a year she was a national champion. And through her teens, she never lost a competition. She was always gold, 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 never took silver. So I wanted people to be able to see behind the scenes of how much work went into that. The fact that Ashima would wake up by herself, go to school, take the bus, go to school. After school, she'd take the train to the climbing gym. She would climb until like 9, 10 p.m., come home, have dinner. Then after her parents are like cleaning up and getting ready for bed, she did homework on her own because her parents can't help her with, you know, English homework or whatnot. So she would stay up till like midnight, 1, sometimes 2 a.m. on her own, do homework, go to bed, repeat that every day. And I found it pretty amazing. And I felt like she was someone that I could look up to, and also hopefully like her peers could look up to.
That's great. One of the first rock climbing documentaries I saw was Chris Sharma's King Lions. How did Chris Sharma get involved in the project?
He, I mean, he's just a wonderful person. He's one of the few climbers, and I don't come from a climbing background. I don't climb at all. It's not something that I'm interested in. But Chris was one of those people. He, I think, became a household name in climbing around 13 years old, so when around the same age as Ashima, and has created a sustainable, successful career in climbing. Like he was in the remake of Point Break, he was one of the climbers. He's been on the cover of Rolling Stone. Like he has transcended climbing, and I think he saw a lot of himself in Ashima, and he had early on volunteered saying, you know, if Ashima needs, has any questions or needs any help, like don't hesitate to reach out. And so, you know, the first person that Ashima really idolized was Chris, and was able to get, like, you know, there's a picture of Ashima getting his autograph when she was, I don't know, maybe like 9 years old or something. So we had reached out and said, oh, it'd be great if we could climb with you where you live in Spain. And he was more than happy to you know, show us around and spend time hanging out with Ashima. Yeah, the climbing community is very open and welcoming, and yeah, it's a great community to be a part of.
Yeah. Any questions from the audience? Right there.
So Ashima is like 13 in this film. So one thing that I noticed, especially at the end, that scene with her dad getting her to Gal, was she seemed like she even mentioned in the film about being like what's it called? Shy, and like she had a hard time expressing herself. Like you had like recordings of her, especially like at her TED Talk, where like maybe in English she was really good with expressing like her feelings, but when she was around her parents and in the household, she seemed like she was maybe much more like I don't know, like hard, or like she had that obedience, I guess, to her dad. What do you think was, like, when you were staying with them and everything, like, was it like based on the settings that she was in, she could kind of like really kind of freely express herself, or was it like her lifestyle, because it did seem kind of lonely? She didn't really have like friends, so she couldn't really like express like what she was going through with anybody else except for her parents.
Yeah, I think just my observation, because obviously I'm not her and I don't know what's going on in her mind, but she definitely was lonely growing up. We've had conversations about that, and she does a good job of of being kind of caught in the middle, whether it's you know, her parents had her when they were when they were 50. So at home, she's only around adults. When she's climbing, she's only around adults, basically, because she climbs at their level. And so she's very comfortable being around adults, but then at school, she kind of feels a little off because she's around kids her own age, and it doesn't, like, their actions, the immaturity, you know, just them, like, goofing off, it doesn't make sense to her. And then also you have, like, the language at home, it's in Japanese, and then she has to, like, switch between that and English, and then the other cultural differences. And then she went to a private school on the Upper East Side. It's a lot of wealthy kids, and that was also very different from being at home. So in a lot of ways, she was an outsider, and I think focusing on climbing helped, but I think she, even to this day, like now, at 23, she's really trying to grasp where she fits, and if that's important, if she fits in. But I know she's had many moments where she's felt very lonely.
One of the things I think that was really powerful in crafting this story, we had hundreds of hours of footage, many hours that I didn't see, but this guy did. I was part of the process in a much like cut down version, but identifying the story and giving the filmmaker creative freedom to like figure out what's the point of view and what's the point of like the aspects of Ashima that we're trying to show, you know, in the film. Because everybody who watches it has different interpretations. You know, for me as an Asian American woman, like the reason I'm not a climber, but when I saw her and her dad, oh my goodness, like completely relatable content. Like, and you know, we had to discuss and like ask a lot of hard questions and answer those questions of like how are we trying to portray this relationship, because there's a lot that we left out, a lot, you know, 100 hours of footage, you guys got 86 minutes, so there's a lot of even intensity of Popo that we had to kind of figure out and calibrate. How harsh are we gonna, because he goes intense, he goes hard. This is a very lovely version of him, to be honest. And it's interesting with the commentary we've heard from different audiences. For example, like in an Asian American audience, they're like, oh, he's chill. Like, it's not like really for us, we were like, yeah, it's, you know, it's home. Like, that's dad, and then, or mom, or whoever. And then, but some other audiences maybe not as familiar with, you know, the strict nature of Asian American or Asian discipline. Like, oh my God, it's so like cruel and like it's brutal and like, you know, so the responses are so everybody's response to it and their receiving and what they witness is very, very different. It's very unique to what they have been through. But with Ashima, like we question too, like, are we trying to glorify this like life of, you know, sleeping 4 hours a night when you're 13 years old? She was very brave and vulnerable because she was like, I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, and she cared about showing the hard stuff because she's like, I'm not trying to say this is the right way to go, and I don't want other people to see that and be like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. She wants to be truthful about it, so she can say there were really lonely, hard times, there were really soul-crushing times that she went through in order to get what she got. And it's a valid question. That's why I love docs, is like you can walk away from that wondering, like, would I have done the same thing? And we've heard a lot from young and older parents of like, is that the way, was that the right way, or is that the right way to raise your kid? Things like that. And so, yeah, it goes really deep, but we're really grateful to her because she was the one that was brave and vulnerable enough to share that aspect of her life.
Yeah, there are moments like, you know, at the beginning at dinner when they're talking about the TED Talk and both Ashima and her mom kind of gang up on Popo and tell him to be quiet and his ideas are dumb. Like, she was able, even when she was 12 or 11, when needed to, like, kind of scold Popo or, like, put him in his place in fun ways. Yeah, then there are, it's like, I think, you know, when you're a hormonal like teenager, like you have your waves being like up and down, and the emotions are, you know, it's like 1,000 or at 0. But it was fun to be like a part of that, to see that happen.
So Ashima talks a lot about like her dad and involving in her life. Did she ever talk to you like specifically about like parental pressure that she ever had? Because I feel like she doesn't talk a lot about how Popo like kind of treated her. Like she said like, oh, he's my dad, it doesn't really matter. Did she ever like feel like it was like a lot of pressure for her?
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, she felt a lot of pressure because her parents gave up a lot. Like her mom worked so hard to provide for all these trips that she was going on and climb. Like before she had big sponsors, she's paying for these trips. And then she felt the pressure of, yeah, like if you don't win competitions, like your mom's gonna be disappointed, sponsors are gonna be disappointed, is it worth it? Leading up to, you know, the Tokyo Olympics, there was a lot of pressure on her to perform competitively when, you know, she's like a household name in climbing. She doesn't need to compete, go to competitions. She can be like she can climb outside with friends and probably still do fine. But yeah, she definitely did feel all the pressure that you can, and especially at that young age. And that was constantly a topic of conversation of like, don't choke, like, don't choke before a competition. And then to go that many years without not winning a competition, whether it be like nationals, youth nationals, or I don't know how she dealt with that. Like I would always be super nervous for her going to these competitions. And it's hard because in climbing, like all these other kids at these climbing competitions belong to a team at their local gym. So they travel to competitions as a team. They all are wearing uniforms, matching uniforms. They eat lunch together. They travel together. They train together. Ashima's always at these competitions with her dad, and they're isolated. They're like doing their own thing. So she doesn't get that camaraderie either, which is why she says like it's so hard because I'm around kids my age, but they're my competition, and it's really hard to like connect with them because she doesn't have that like teammate type relationship with other kids her age. But yeah.
I think we have time for one more question right there with your hand up.
Yeah, has she got any calls from Hollywood to be like Spider-Woman or anything yet?
And not that I mean I don't talk to Ashima as much as I used to, so I don't know what kind of call she's getting. I mean, you know, she's written a children's book about, I don't remember what it's called, but yeah, I'm sure you can Google it and it'll pop up. And what else is she working on? I mean, she's really passionate about, probably not acting, but like the outdoors and the earth. Like she's very into farming, agriculture, foraging, textiles, dyes, fashion. She's done like collaborations with Brain Dead and you know, they're friends of hers, so a lot of, and like her parents met at fashion school in Tokyo, so she's kind of following that trajectory of fashion.
She's a superstar, whether she likes it or not. No, and she's lived many lives by the time she was really young. By the time Kenji met her, she's like a small adult. By the time I met her, I was like, I felt like I needed to bow to her. I was like, you're just so wise. And she's, you know, become like a surrogate sister, and we're really, really proud of her. She really wants to make climbing more accessible. It's so great to meet, you know, climbers here. I hope like we can chat because it's not, you guys gave away month pass. You better value that, whoever won that. There's people who can't afford to climb, you know? It's like she said, her mom and dad had to save up to get a pair of climbing shoes. And so that's one of her big passions is accessibility and encouraging people to get outdoors and to care about the earth, enjoy nature. She's an extremely passionate person. So even though she is still like naturally very introverted, she's also like those passions help her overcome that, and that's why I'm so proud of her as like a person. And you know, the theme of this movie, why I got on board as a producer, was his pitch deck. It said, "Fall 7 times, get up 8," and that was the message of this thing. And just sorry, I'm saying this at the very end, but making this movie took Kenji 12 years. I was on this for 6. Like that's not a normal. Well, maybe in docs that could be totally normal, but it was a really gargantuan effort on our side to figure out how to tell this story, do justice to her, do something that's worthwhile for you all to come into a room and spend, you know, an hour and a half or 2 hours with us. So that's kind of the overall theme of, like, I think Ashima's life. What we want to tell with this film is, you know, things don't go your way all the time. It is going to be hard. It can be completely worth it. You're going to learn something, whether you succeed or fail in it, and that's really kind of up to you how you want to define it. So yeah, I think I'm just saying that because if she were here, I think that's along the lines of what she would share. And we don't know where in the world she is right now either. Like, she's a very hard woman to get a hold of. But I hope you guys can, like, keep climbing, and hopefully she'll be able to cross paths with you, because she loves meeting people who are passionate about all of this.
Yeah, I think the beauty of rock climbing is that it's called a problem, and you solve that problem, whether it be, you know, 9 days or years in the making. And she is the Lady Gaga of rock climbing,
Obviously.
as Bobo said. How do we support the film? Like, what's next for the film? How can we get folks to see it?
Just tell friends about it. If you could, yeah, how can you support? I mean, we're just trying to find a distributor at the moment. So if you have an account on IMDb or like Letterboxd, you could like write a review or, you know, leave stars. I mean, if you didn't like it, be honest. You can give it like 1 star. But the more number of you know, feedback we have, I think it'd be helpful to gain traction and visibility.
I believe you'll be at LA Asian Film Festival and Campfest, which is in San Francisco.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
so it's opportunities for folks to watch it in May.
Yep, and please share about it like on social media. Follow us on Instagram. It's Ashima the movie.
Great. Well, I think that's all. That's all. I hope you all join us. And once again, let's give it up for Minji and Kenji. I hope you'll join us at the 3rd floor. I still have extra day passes for Mesa Rim, so come find me. I'll give one to you. Climb like Ashima, and thank you once again.